G'day and welcome to ReDriven. Now, as far as small cars go, we've already reviewed the most practical option, which is the Honda Jazz/Fit, the most stylish options, which are like the Fiat 500 and the Mini Cooper, and potentially the most sensible option, which is the Toyota Yaris. But today, we've got arguably the most fun option, the Mazda 2. See, Mazda prides themselves on not only making well-built, high-quality machines, but they also have to be fun to drive, hence the Zoom Zoom tagline. And this Mazda 2, when new, was all of those things. But what about now that they're not new? What are they like now that they're a few years old and have many thousands of kilometers on them? Are they reliable? What goes wrong? What do they cost to own and maintain? And most importantly, should you buy one? Let's find out. Now guys, before we get deep into the Mazda 2, I should mention that in this video we're going to be focusing on the Australian variant of the Mazda 2, but if you're not from Australia, don't freak out or panic because everything we're going to be going over should relate to Mazda 2s in your local market. Okay, so here's a fun fact. The Mazda 2 is actually built on the same platform as the Ford Fiesta, which is a car that we haven't reviewed yet, but we will eventually get around to reviewing a Ford Fiesta sooner or later. Also, since it's been released way back in 2007, it's been available on a bunch of different variants and trim levels, and there's even been some updates. But to give you an overview of all that, here's me doing a voiceover. Here in Australia, the 2 has been available in primarily 3 different trim levels, the Neo, Max and Genki, although a Neo Sport and Max Sport have also made appearances. Engine-wise, all Mazda 2 of this generation come equipped with a 1.5-litre 4-cylinder, and transmission, depending on trim level and year, will either be a 5-speed manual or a 4-speed auto driving the front wheels. The 2 received an update in mid-2010, being given some extra equipment, some updated tech, and a bit of a visual freshen-up. This 2010 update also saw the introduction of a 4-door sedan, joining the 3- and 5-door hatch options, although Australia didn't exactly resonate with the sedan, and just 9 months later, it was no more. And look guys, we love nothing more than to go into every minute detail of every variant and upgrade, but that would just take way too long. The video would be really boring. Instead of doing that, we've gathered all of that information and we've put it in our very handy ReDriven cheat sheets. Our cheat sheets are invaluable as they provide a full breakdown of the car's model range, its common problems, what you need to look out for before handing over your hard-earned cash, how much of that cash you should be handing over, and so much more. Check it out at redriven.com or in the link below. Now guys, if you are a Mazda 2 expert or you own a Mazda 2 and you've noticed that in this video we've missed something major that we should have mentioned, please let us know in the comments. Obviously, look, we're doing our best to cover as much as we can on the Mazda 2, but we generally find it's those that own these cars that are the real experts. So yeah, again, if we've missed something, let us know. Also, to keep this video as objective as we possibly can, we've reached out and spoken to a whole bunch of Mazda 2 owners, we've spoken to Mazda technicians and mechanics, and we've read through what feels like hours and hours of consumer and reliability reports. So this video is made up of basically the culmination of all of that and their information. Okay, so does it look good? Well, thanks to Mazda kind of dabbling in their Kodo soul of motion design language when this was coming out, personally, I think it's a great looking little car. It's not too feminine, it's not too masculine, it just kind of works. Also, I think the updated models from like 2010 onwards just add a little bit more aggression to the front of it, and a little bit of aggression always helps. But yeah, I think it's a good looking thing. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. Now, there are a few things to watch out for in terms of the exterior. See, because these are getting more and more affordable, we'll get to what they cost later in the video, but because they're getting more affordable, a lot of people don't comprehensively insure them. So if they have an accident, rather than spending big money and getting it fixed and repaired properly, they kind of cut some financial corners and go to their dad's, uncle's, cousin's, best mate's friend who did a panel beating course for 2 days and has some spray paint in his backyard and gets him to fix it, and it's a dodgy job. It's going to be a disaster. But how do you tell if it's had some dodgy repair work done? It's honestly really easy. First up, go over all the paint. Does the paint match both in color and in texture between all the panels? Are the panel gaps all the same? Also in terms of paint, look for overspray. Look like into here, like in all the air vents, up in the wheel arches. Make sure you pop the bonnet and look for any signs of overspray there. If there's overspray, dodgy job. Next up, look at the wheels. Like a little bit of gutter rash like this is to be expected. You know, there's pretty much a metropolitan car, that's fine. But if there are any big gouges or big damage to the wheel, the tire, or the hubcap, that might result in some suspension damage, and that's annoying, bad. Also, and this might seem like kind of common sense, but open and close all of the doors and see how they feel when they open and close. See, the actual structure of this car is quite light and they're susceptible to bigger than normal damage, even in a light impact. So open and close all the doors, the bonnet, the boot, everything, and just make sure they open and close properly. If they kind of clunk or they're a bit weird, do not buy that car. Now, in terms of common problems and issues that the Mazda 2 gets with the exterior, we're going to cover those later in the video. So how's the interior? Well, look, this was marketed as a fun little car, and the interior is kind of fun. It's not like Fiat 500 or Mini Cooper levels of design aesthetics in here, but yeah, it's still a pretty funky little thing. Some extra colors would have been nice because it is a bit of a sea of black and grey plastic. As far as the ergonomics go, really good, like everything's really easy to touch. Seating position's really nice, and it's super adjustable as well, as is the steering wheel. And as far as wear and tear goes, look, this is this owner's daily driver. It gets a hell of a workout, and you can kind of tell. It is starting to age kind of weirdly. Like the steering wheel feels like it's decomposing and also has a bit of a horrific rash. Might need a bit of a cream for that. The gear knob looks kind of like decomposing skin, or like maybe a dehydrated apple or something, a bit gross. The piano black plastic, like most piano black plastics, is getting kind of scratched up. All the buttons and all this stuff feels fine. But yeah, the hard plastics, not a lot of squidge anywhere. And that's kind of getting a bit marked up and dirty and scratched. A really proper detail I'd probably sort it out, but the rash has me worried. Now in the back seat, I'm exactly the same height as Kylie Jenner. If she were balancing Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, vertically on her head, this is in my seating position, and it's pretty tight back here. This has nothing on a Honda Jazz as far as accommodation in the back seat. Like my legs aren't too squished, bit of foot room, but yeah, it's a little bit claustrophobic for somebody my height. As far as wear and tear goes, it's pretty good. Obviously this isn't used anywhere near as much as the front seats go, so the material here isn't too bad. There's not a lot of scratching on the doors, or these materials feel kind of okay. It's okay for wear and tear in the back. How's the tech? Well look, the tech is going to vary depending on the year and the trim level and a bunch of those sorts of things, but even with the post-update cars in the top spec, the tech is a bit crap. But for an overview, here's me doing a voiceover.
The base Model 2 will come with a 4-speaker stereo with a CD player, a digital clock, air conditioning, central locking, power door mirrors, and even a remote fuel lid release. Some models do have auxiliary or USB inputs, but forget Bluetooth connectivity or anything like Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, although fitting that stuff with aftermarket equipment, it's a breeze.
For the graphic details of which 2 gets what levels of tech, just jump on ReDriven.com and check out that cheat sheet. Is it practical? Kind of, sort of. The problem is, like, it's quite deep, so if you're loading heavy things in, there's a massive lip to kind of get it over. Plus the seats, they fold forward, but they don't fold completely flat. And this particular owner has decided to eat up probably about 1/3 of the boot space with some subwoofers. So, like, there's an okay amount of space back here, but not palatial by any means. Practicality in the back seat, not a whole lot. You can kind of access this little tray down here, but that's more for the front seat section. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, practicality in the back, no. And practicality up front, you have some door bins with a bit of a bottle holder there, not very large. There's a spot here for the owner's earbuds. Gross. There's a shelf here for a very, very tiny book. There's a spot here for your ReDriven script, which just goes in there like that. And then when you flip down this, there's a bit of a glove box kind of thing there with a little shelf just up here, another little shelf just up here for another tiny little book, another cup holder here, and another shelf down here for odds and sods and bits and bobs. Okay, so what goes wrong with these things? We're going to get to the mechanical stuff in a second, but we'll start with the exterior, which honestly is pretty good news. Like, with all the research we did, we couldn't find any like common issues as such. Like, there are sporadic reports of like windscreen wipers not wiping water as efficiently as they should, but even then, they're not common problems. They're just like one complaint here and there, and it's probably more the person complaining than the car. Okay, so how about interior gremlins? What goes wrong with the interior? Well, again, it's a bit like the exterior. Not a whole lot. Nothing really goes wrong like as a common problem in these. These were subject to the Takata airbag disaster, so make sure that the Takata airbag recall has been done on the car. But besides that, look, there are the odd report here and there of a sporadic problem, but very few and far between. Interior, great. Now, before we get to mechanically what goes wrong with these things, can I ask a favor? Can you hit those like, subscribe, and bell buttons? And can you share this video as much as you can? Because the more you share this video and the more you hit those buttons, the more of these videos we can make. And that'd be bloody lovely. Now, what mechanically goes wrong with the Mazda 2? Well, the thing is, I'm not a mechanic, so I'm not qualified to tell you. But Jim is.
This is one of those cars we see in the workshop all the time for servicing, but very rarely for repairs. Yeah, we might see the odd water pump or wheel bearing or engine mount or something, but overall, very reliable. In the unlikely event that something should go wrong, parts are really cheap and they're really easy to work on, which all helps keeps the cost down. The engines have a timing chain, not a belt, which in the long term makes them much cheaper to maintain, and they have a realistic service schedule every 10,000 Ks, and if you stick to that, will last you a really long time. They do have a couple of recalls for airbags, but in this day and age, heaps of cars do, so if you're looking at one, make sure that's been done. And like everything else, if you're looking at one, make sure it's got a really good, well-documented service history, and before you buy it, get it checked out by your local independent mechanic.
Is it safe? Well, even when it was brand new, it wasn't exactly the safest thing on four wheels, because this car, when it was first tested back in 2007, only received a 4-star NCAP safety rating. But for an overview of the safety features in the Mazda 2, here's me doing a voiceover as fast as I possibly can.
The Mazda 2 comes equipped with airbags, anti-lock brakes, electronic brake force distribution and seatbelts, and that's about it. There was an optional safety pack available that included extra airbags, but even with that, pre-update, it's a 4-star car in terms of safety. However, as of 2012, once stability and traction control had been added and the extra previously optional airbags and other occupant protection features had been added, the 2 finally received a full 5-star NCAP safety rating.
But again, for all the graphic details of which 2 gets what safety tech, check out the cheat sheet on ReDriven.com. So what's it like to drive after all of these years and many thousands of kilometres? It's just fun. It's a fun little car. It's great. It's almost like the car version of a little puppy always wanting to play. It's awesome. Even like when you've got to rev it out, to overtake somebody or accelerate out of a driveway or an intersection, even the engine sounds kind of fruity. The steering's really nice. Like, it doesn't feel overly light and vague like many cars in this class. The ride quality has degraded a little bit over time, but even then it's not unbearable. It's fine. This particular car does have a couple of rattles coming from the dashboard, but it's a few years old. You've got to expect these things, and it's not not unbearable to live with by any means. I should mention that this is an auto, but in the manual versions of these, the manual shift feels nearly as good as an MX-5, and that's super enjoyable. I'd personally buy the manual, but I get why you'd buy an auto. Now, if you are test driving one of these, make sure you listen out for any weird mechanical sounds or any senses of bad vibrations. If it sounds bad, it probably is bad. Overall, what's it like to drive? It's bloody wonderful. Pricing here in Australia kicks off from as little as $3,000, but a $3,000 Mazda 2 is probably going to be pretty rough, and it tops out at around about $15,000 for a late model, top spec and mint condition with low kilometres. Something like this, a 2011 Neo with a decent amount of kilometres on it, in pretty good condition, even the pricing on this is going to range anywhere from $6,000 to $12,000. The pricing does honestly range that dramatically. And for pricing elsewhere on this big planet of ours, here's a graphic. Mazda claim a fuel consumption figure of around about 6.5 litres per 100 Ks, obviously depending on auto or manual and what generation, but this car's seeing figures closer to 9. Mazda offered a 3-year unlimited kilometre warranty on all of these Mazda 2s, which means this generation, they're all well and truly out of warranty now, and servicing is recommended at every 6 months or 10,000 Ks. So, should you buy one? Abso-bloody-lutely. The Mazda 2 is a great little car. It's still a great little car, but which one should you buy?
Our pick is finding whatever the most recent low-kilometre example that your budget allows that also has a full and thorough service history.
But even then, make sure you get it thoroughly checked out, preferably by a mechanic for a full pre-purchase inspection.
Yes, these cars are fantastic, but unfortunately, there are a few dickhead owners out there, and they turn into dickhead sellers. And you do not want to buy not just a Mazda 2, but any car that has been abused or mistreated.
Find the right, well-cared-for Mazda 2, and you're going to have a cracking good car. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and what did you think of the Mazda 2? Let us know in those comments, and also can you remember hit those like, subscribe and bell buttons. Also share this video as much as you can, because the more you share it and the more you hit those buttons, the more of these we can make, and that'd be great for everybody hopefully. Also remember to go and check us out on the socials. See you next time. G'day and welcome to ReDriven. Now, as far as I've gone totally blank, here we go. Overly masculine or overly feminine and any but how do you tell that it's had some dodgy repair work done? Repair work? And servicing is recommended at every 6 months or 10,000 Ks, I think.